And about noon, started getting just notes from people back in town saying, and from my staff who had family and friends back in town, saying things like, you know, we're just hearing weird stuff. It sounds like parts of town are getting evacuated. I called my husband at that point and I said, I don't know what's going on, but what does it look like to you? Because he works at Keano College right downtown. And he was an emerge nurse for 10 years, so he doesn't panic under any situation. And he said to me, you know, I think I'll go home and get the kids. Things just don't seem right. And that's when I was like, oh my God, this is bad. He had packed the car, and his version of packing the car was quite funny, and I'll get to that in a minute. My husband met me there on the north end of town, and at that point the road south was closed. So I jumped into the car with him, and the first thing that struck me is that he had the canoe on the roof. And I'm like, Andrew, what's up with the canoe? And he had packed the canoe, a rifle, 10 pounds of potatoes, and his chainsaw. And he goes, if the road gets clogged, we're taking to the river and we'll canoe to Fort Chip or however far north we have to go with our 3 kids. And I just remember thinking, did you get my wedding pictures? He's like, no. So very practical, very survivalist. I jumped in the car and we started going north. So when we got to site, there was somebody flagging cars in, but they didn't say whether to go to camp or the aerodrome, and I remember thinking, go to the place where the airport is. So we drove straight to the aerodrome itself and jumped out of the car, and I grabbed a backpack, Andrew grabbed a backpack, the rest was all survival gear, so we didn't really have much stuff except a couple backpacks, and all 3 of our kids, who are 7, 5, and 3 now. And my kids, they jumped out and they're like, well, Mom, we don't have any shoes. And I look at Andrew and he's like, they had shoes when I left. But they had all, somehow between leaving the house and getting in the car, all 3 of them had removed their shoes. So we got into the airport, and Andrew took the car and parked it back at camp, and then managed to get a bus to the airport. But they were still figuring out the logistics of getting people from camp to the airport. So we were actually the first family there in the aerodrome. And we didn't really know at that point what they were going to say about non-shift people getting on the flight, especially families and such. But they were amazing. They welcomed us in with open arms. People fed my kids who hadn't eaten in quite a while because of how long the drive took. And we were on the flight out that evening. The reception we got when we landed in Calgary was massive. Just, what do you need? Do you need anything at all? We needed shoes for the kids. But other than that, it was really an amazing, incredible experience.